And may I say a good afternoon to everyone and welcome to the Township of Douro-Dummer and our council meeting here on the 18th of May. It's a delight to see all you wonderful people on the screen. Dave Smith is here too. Dave, we're glad you could be with us. And we are going to have an expedient meeting, and we will do our very best to do that. And our meeting, of course, we will do our best to handle things just as we would if we were live in our council chambers. And of course, we all keep our fingers crossed that that won't be too long from now. But we've got to keep doing what we need to do, and we can get through this whole mess we call COVID-19. I'd like to call the roll, please, for members of council to make sure we are all here. First of all, Deputy Mayor Moher.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Present.
Councillor Landsman.
Here.
And Councillor Watson.
I am also here.
Our staff, of course, our CAO, Alana Arthurs is here. Our Deputy Clerk, Martina Cheat-Hartwig is here. Jake Condon, our Manager of Public Works, and other staff will be along as we need them through the meeting. And I think I would be remiss if I did not send out our deepest sympathies, our prayers to Councillor Landsman on the recent loss of her husband. So Sheila, we're with you, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, with all of council in attendance, we'll call the meeting to order at exactly 5:01. And we respectfully acknowledge that we're on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga-Anishinaabe Nation, and we offer our gratitude to the First Nation peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Could we please have a moment of silence? Thank you all very much. Any members of council have any pecuniary interest with any of the matters that we're dealing with?
Nope.
Okay, seeing no hands. Could I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda? Madam Clerk, the agenda is complete. There's no additions to what we're looking at. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. There was an amended agenda circulated on Friday, and it was posted on Friday as well, so the public has had access.
Just to be clear, thank you very much for that. And a motion to do just that, please. Councillor Landsman, Councillor Watt, all in favor? That motion is approved. The last time we were together was the 4th of May, our regular meeting. Motion to receive and approve those minutes, please. Deputy Mayor Moher, seconded by Councillor Watson. All in favor? That motion is approved. Moving along quite nicely. I was going to ask for a motion to adjourn, but not quite yet, I guess. Delegations, petitions, and presentations. And we do ask all of our guests to please limit your remarks to our 10-minute time limit. I will push the timer and I will ring the bell when there's 1 minute left so that you can keep on track. Okay, our first presentations under 8.1 is a special presentations by Ease Solutions. And this is an update on our brand new website. And who do we have on the screen, Martina? Who are we going to welcome?
So we have Melissa Puzo and Sean Wise, both from eSolutions.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing them on the screen, but I'm sure they're going to take over here momentarily.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Here, I can hear, I can't see.
I will just share my screen. It looks like host has disabled participant screen sharing.
No, Melissa, you should be able to do so now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Can everyone see the Township of Douro-Dummer website redesign project overview document?
Yep,
Yes.
we got it now. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So I'm Melissa Peluso from eSolutions Group. I've been the project manager on the website redesign project since we began in November. I've been working closely with Martina and Brian. And I have Sean Wise here today, who is our information architect. He worked on the sitemap portion of the website, which I'll go through briefly, as well as Mark Trudell, who's our creative director and worked on the design portion of the project. So what I'll do is go through this document today. It's an overview of the project to date and next steps, and then there will be time for questions at the end. So what I'll be going through today is the project process that we've gone through to date, the delivery schedule that we've followed since November, the next steps on the project in the remaining month until go live, and then, like I said, any questions remaining. In terms of the site mapping portion of the project, Sean Wise actually met with council at an earlier meeting this year and went through the site map. So the steps taken on the sitemap are an initial draft sitemap that Sean puts together based on Google Analytics and best practices. From there, we went to a TreeJack and marketing of that TreeJack survey. And TreeJack was a chance to get the public involved in the review of the sitemap and how that was working. And then from there, we go through revisions and approvals until we got to our final sitemap. So basically, the sitemap acts as a blueprint for the website design, and it also defines all the pages that content is needed on, and that allows Douro-Dummer to write content for the pages on their site. And I've just inserted here a sample of what the approved sitemap looks like. The next step in the process of this website redesign project was content writing. So that is actually in progress still right now. It's just finishing up this week. So initially, once we get sitemap approval, we go through putting together a schedule for content writing and a spreadsheet that Douro-Dummer can follow that will allow them to track their content writing. We also have a member of our group, Carly, who works closely with Sean. She has been assisting with content writing for Douro-Dummer as well on some of the pages. There was also writing for the web training, so that was early on in the project before content writing took place, and that allowed everyone who would be writing for the website to get a good handle on best practices for writing for the web. So there was a 3-hour training session held, and then a recording was provided and some documentation as well. Content writing, like I said, is the stage we're in now. So Douro-Dummer is still finishing up their content. Our next step on the project in terms of content writing will be the import of content. So we'll take all the content that Douro-Dummer has written and bring it into the new website. And then from there, we'll go through a stage of content cleanup where both eSolutions and Douro-Dummer goes through the site and cleans up the content just before go live. So content writing, like I said, began after the sitemap approval, and that actually occurs in parallel with design and development. So that allows us to work on design and development of the site at the same time as Douro-Dummer is writing content, just to be efficient there. So development, both design and development are complete now. So content writing is the next step. Content import is one of the items I just mentioned on the last slide. So basically, we'll be importing the content from all of the Word documents that Douro-Dummer has been writing their content in. Then our team will go through the content, review it, clean it up, and make sure it's all linked up on the site correctly and mapped just as the sitemap was outlined. And another item we handle is pulling reports for Douro-Dummer. So we'll generate something called a square bracket report, which allows us to pull all of the content notes that Douro-Dummer has written, like insert a link here or insert a button here, and allows you to go through and just see that in a report format. So it's a bit easier to go through the site. We also generate misspellings reports, broken links, as well as accessibility reports for Douro-Dummer to go through and ensure that there's no broken links on the site, no accessibility concerns, and things like that. In terms of design, which again was earlier in the project, it came after the sitemap approval. And we did present design at a previous council meeting as well. So there was a high fidelity design concept of the homepage in desktop view, as well as high fidelity design concepts of interior pages, which included different text styles, buttons, sub-navigation menus, and the different layout builder components that are included in the site. There was also a high fidelity design concept of the drop-down menu on the site, which included any menu calls to action or quick links. And all of these went through revisions and approval as well. And Douro-Dummer did approve and sign off on all concepts before we were able to begin development. This is just a sample of the design that was approved. In terms of development, which was the next step following design approval, we have a few different development stages that we go through over the course of 3 months. So there's a front-end development CSS portion of the project. Then we move into our template development. We install and configure all of the modules on the site according to the way that Douro-Dummer wants them set up. And then we go through a quality assurance testing period at the end of development as well. And like I mentioned previously, while we worked on our development and QA, Douro-Dummer was working on their website content. Just a brief overview here of training that has happened to date, as well as one outstanding training. So we have form builder training, which was a 3-hour instructor-led training session via Microsoft Teams. So that was a training session on how to build forms in our form builder module. Writing for the web I mentioned as well, so that was held previously earlier in the year. And then the one outstanding training that we're looking to provide on the 31st of May and the 2nd of June is our iCreate training. So that's training on the website and all of its modules. So this is a much longer training. This is 2 full days. It is instructor-led and again via Microsoft Teams. So that is scheduled and booked for the upcoming weeks. In terms of the cleanup and user acceptance testing phase, this will come after the iCreate training. So we like to call this our eyes on every page stage of the project. A few things that will ensure that Douro-Dummer is looking through as they're reviewing their site is cleaning up their content notes, like I mentioned earlier, going through if there's any spelling errors based on that report, reviewing the setup of the modules, adding any embedded media, which includes images, videos, or any third-party widgets that are to be included. Building their content layout, so just making the site have a little bit more imagery. Any accessibility errors, which again, we will pull reports for. Website quality reports, and then again, broken links, which we pull reports for. And just a note on accessibility here, so that everyone knows accessibility is a consideration throughout our projects. And this is just a couple of ways that you can see it come through the site. So we ensure accessibility is considered in our design, our sitemap, our iCreate CMS, and the modules. We include it in our writing for the web training, and then in our development practices and testing as well. This is an overview of the delivery schedule, and this one is including our TreeJack survey that I mentioned earlier. So we kicked off the project in November. We had a brief period of some analysis and planning just to set expectations for the project. Then we went over to sitemap. So the sitemap initial draft and then revisions and approval took approximately 3 weeks. During that time, there was also the Tree Jack survey that we released. So that was approximately out to the public for about a week. Sitemap approval was provided just before Christmas in December. Content writing began in the new year and is ongoing, as I mentioned, up until this week in May. Design was approximately a 4-week stage from initial design, revisions, and approval. We received design approval in mid-January. The website development takes approximately 12 weeks, so we finished up development mid-April. And then this is where we're at now. So post-development cleanup will happen over the course of 5 days following content completion. Training will occur at the end of May. Then the 2-week period for Douro-Dummer to review, clean up, and go through their user acceptance testing period will be late May to early June. There is an opportunity for a soft launch where Martina and Brian can share out to staff and council a link to provide feedback on the website. And then go live is currently scheduled for the 16th of June. And the last item we have here is a project closeout. So we always like to close out the project with a meeting, give Douro-Dummer a chance to provide us with feedback and set up quarterly meetings. So we always meet with clients once every quarter following go live of a website. And this is just a brief overview again of what's left in the project. So finishing up the content, moving over to our iCreate training on the 31st of May and June 2nd. The user acceptance testing period, which will be approximately 2 weeks. And then lastly, the email to staff and council, our pre-go live and go live. Are there any questions for us?
Okay, we're going to open it up. I'm sure members of council have questions. We're thankful that staff have got their eyes on this little project. It's very involved. So any questions of members of council, please go ahead, Carl.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. The training appears to be quite complex. So I guess my question is to staff, either Elena or Martina, or even Brian. When we have changes, are the changes going to be easy and quick to implement with a number of people trained?
My button's stuck. Martina, did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are training all of our frontline staff on the website so that it's not just one person who will be completing all the changes. As part of this process, we've also asked for manuals and modules. So should staff turn over or people change positions, we can impart this knowledge onto other staff members. And the changes are relatively easy, much simpler than our current process.
Good, thank you.
Sean, were you going to offer something there as well? Sorry.
Questions, especially.
Oh, we're not hearing you, Sean.
Oh.
Don't you love these technical things? My goodness. We'd hear you loud and clear if you were live in the council chamber. I just want you to know that. But we're not.
You can't hear me at all.
Oh, very, very, very faintly.
Oh dear. All right.
Go ahead.
Hear me better now.
It's very low, but we can make it out. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm just here to answer any questions that pop up regarding the sitemap, the navigation, or the user testing going forward. And it's just great to see everybody again. It's been a while. I think it was back in December 2020. It's great to see everybody's faces again.
Great, thank you. Other questions from council members or even staff? Go ahead. I know they'll be working with this probably a lot more than we will. I think we're all in agreement. We just want something that's going to be simple to use, that our ratepayers can easily maneuver and capture all the information they want without any problems. So I'm sure that's the goal of all of us. Any other questions? Okay, we will move on then, and I thank you very much. It must mean you're doing a great job, and we certainly look forward to the end result, and we'll all anxiously await for that. Thank you all very much. A motion, please, to receive that delegation. Councillor Landsman, seconded by Councillor Moher. All in favor? That motion is approved. Thank you all very much. And no doubt we'll hear more from you as the weeks tick by. Our next delegation, 8.2, is our MPP, Dave Smith. And he's here, I'm sure, to discuss the budget, to discuss any questions we have about COVID. We'll try not to discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs in his background. But I'm sure he's going to score a goal before he leaves here tonight. And I've got to tell everybody, Dave has been very much a supporter of Douro-Dummer through our many dealings that I have as warden and as mayor. And, you know, I got to give him a pat in the back. He's done all the right things. He's put on food drives that he didn't have to do. He's busy enough. But anyway, Dave, I'm not trying to suck up, believe me, but I do want to say thank you. You're doing these things for the right reason. And I know you've got our back. So go ahead, Dave, seeing as you're MPP, I'm going to give you 10 and a half minutes.
Thank you very much for that, Your Worship. My background is the Toronto Maple Leafs. We are taking a Team Ontario approach. And since the Maple Leafs are the only Ontario team that is in the NHL playoffs, the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries has sent this off to us and asked us all to use it whenever we could. So I thought that I would start with that. But I will change my virtual background back to something that is a little bit more fitting, I think. There we go.
Okay.
Oh, now you're thinking. Now who's sucking up here? That's right.
Originally, when we reached out, we were thinking that we would do an update on the budget, and that was just prior to the third wave of COVID-19. I'm happy to talk about anything to do with the budget whenever you have questions on it. But I think that with the situation that we're in right now, it's better for me to talk a little bit about COVID itself. We are, as I said, in the third wave. Everyone is quite aware of that. Our average, 7-day average for infections right now is about 2,200. To put that in perspective, during the second wave, we peaked at about 2,400 infections on a daily basis. During the second wave, we maxed out at just over 900 people who were hospitalized, with about 350 who were in ICU. Today, we have 1,650 people who are hospitalized. We have about 750 people who are in the ICU, and we have around 500 people who are on ventilators today. And that is significantly better than what it was at the peak of the third wave. There have been calls to open things up. A number of people are tired of the restrictions, which I completely understand. But let's put it in perspective. When we opened up after the last wave, we were accused of opening too soon. Our 7-day average was less than 1,000 infections. We had less than 350 people in ICU. In fact, I believe we had about 290 in the ICU. And we had about 105 people who were on ventilators. We are still much worse than the peak of the second wave. And we were accused of opening too soon when the numbers were significantly better than they are right now. We want to make sure that we're in a position that when we open again, that we do not have to go into a lockdown ever again. Now, the combination of the vaccine rollout, the measures that have been taken with the stay at home, we're going to see numbers drop significantly. In fact, today was the lowest it has been since March 24th, just over 1,600 people infected today. Our expectation is that come June 3rd, the stay-at-home order has been lifted and we have a sense of normalcy again, as best we can during COVID. By the last week of May, we will have 65%, slightly more than 65% of people in Ontario who are eligible for a vaccine to have received their first shot. Our second shot won't be as high. We'll still be around the 6 or 7% of fully vaccinated, but 65% or more will have received their first shot. Today, we're at about 52 or 53%. So that extra 13% is a huge number, and it will make a massive difference for us. We're also seeing the infections decline. I know that everyone is sick of staying at home, but we're asking just a little bit longer. We can't come out of it too soon, because if we do, we'll be right back into it, and that will be much worse for everybody in Ontario. We're doing our absolute best, and we're asking everyone, please bear with us for just a couple more weeks, because we will get there. We've offered a number of supports through the budget. The small business grants of $10,000 to $20,000, we doubled that. If you qualified for it in the first round, you automatically qualify for it in the second round, and we'll receive a second $10,000 to $20,000 as relief for it. So it's really $20,000 to $40,000 that most of our small businesses will qualify for. More than 118,000 businesses have already qualified for it. I don't have the specific numbers for Douro-Dummer or for Peterborough County as a total, but we have seen a number of companies in our area who have received funding for it. We've also rolled out, and I am heading up a task force for it, with rapid testing. Any company that has more than 100 employees qualifies for free rapid testing directly from the provincial government. All you have to do is go to the Ontario Together website. You can register there, and within 48 hours, your shipment of rapid tests will be delivered to your company. If your business is less than 100 employees, we are working with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. More than 50 chambers of commerce across Ontario have answered the call and will be providing those rapid tests through the chamber to businesses. I've reached out to the Kawartha Chamber and to the Peterborough Chamber. At present, I have not been able to convince either of them that they should take up this, but they have sent out some of the information on it. I expect that early next week we'll have an announcement where we'll be letting everyone know that there'll be more availability for it. For those of you who have never done it, the antigen test is less invasive than the PCR test. You still put a swab up your nose, but you don't have to shove it all the way back so that you're scratching the back of your brain. It just has to go past your nostril. As long as it touches the inside of your sinus cavity, that's all that it needs to. I've done probably 30 of them now as demonstrations for people. As soon as it starts to tickle, you know that you're in the right spot. You get the results in less than 15 minutes. So it is a very quick test. It doesn't say whether or not you have COVID-19. What it says is the COVID-19 virus is present in your sinus. So we want you to go get a PCR test then to actually confirm whether or not you were simply carrying it or whether you actually have COVID-19. It's a great way for small businesses to demonstrate to their employees and to the general public that they are safe. And the nice part about it is, because you do the test before you walk into your workplace, your employer can guarantee that your workplace is safe. They're catching COVID in the parking lot, and it doesn't go into the workplace, so there isn't spread amongst your coworkers. Very easy test to do. It's non-invasive, and the results come back in 15 minutes. There are a few companies that are very close in our area to be doing it. I have a demonstration with some of them later this week to show them how easy it is. You do not need to have a nurse administer it. You don't have to have anyone who is a medical professional there with it. So it's very, very simple. It's very easy to do. And I think it will be a game changer for us because we can show that we do not have COVID in our workplaces. We're currently debating a bill today, and it'll be coming up for the next couple of days. It's the Moving Ontario More Safely Act. And the biggest part of it is to shut down the stunt driving. What we have seen in our area has been alarming. The number of young adults between the ages of 18 and 30 who have been pulled over for doing 60 kilometers an hour or more above the speed limit. I know that there's not as much traffic on the road, and I know that there are a lot of very nice cars that go very quickly, and there is that temptation when a really good song comes on the radio for your foot to go down the accelerator a little bit more. But just like drunk driving, it's irresponsible, and you can do an awful lot of damage when you're driving a 2,000 or 3,000 pound vehicle traveling at speeds in excess of 100 miles an hour. Or for those of us who are still young enough that we really don't know what miles per hour are when you're traveling more than 160 kilometers an hour. Personally, I introduced a bill and it went to second reading last week. It is a change to Christopher's Law. Christopher's Law is the Ontario Sex Registry, and I want to give companion agencies more access to it. One of the examples that came to me during COVID, there was a family. I'll change a little bit about it so that nobody knows actually who it is. But basically a single mom came down with COVID and needed to be hospitalized. She had a young child, and CIS was involved to place the child with someone so that they were safe. The logical choice was another family member. CAS does not have access to the Ontario Sex Registry, and they almost placed this child with that family member until a close family friend who lived on the same street, whose children played with that child, came forward. And in the end, CAS put the child there while mom is recovering from COVID in the hospital. And the reason I point that out, the family member is a convicted pedophile. They are on the Ontario Sex Registry. But because it was a different community, CAS in that area had no knowledge of it. But for the grace of God, we dodged a bullet. Can you imagine placing a vulnerable under 6-year-old, less than 6 years old, with someone who is a convicted sex offender against children? Allowing companion agencies like the Children's Aid Society, like sexual assault centers or the rape crisis centers, possibly the hospital to have access, the Elizabeth Fry Society, anyone who deals with the vulnerable sector, giving them access to that sex registry will prevent sexual abuse of another victim. It's been referred to Justice, the Standing Committee on Justice Policy, and I'm looking forward to bringing it to committee to have people come and talk about it. I want to thank Mayor Jones for pointing out about the food drives that we did back in November. We actually have more scheduled. We have 5 of them coming up in June. There'll be official kickoff of it the last week of May. It'll be a virtual kickoff. We won't be able to do it in person. However, with the expectation that we'll be lifting restrictions on June 2nd, our first one will be on June 5th, and they will be taking place every weekend in June. The one I will key on in particular is actually one that will be at the Metro on Shermont Road in Peterborough. And the reason I'm touching on that one is all of the proceeds from that event will go to the food bank in Apsley because
Good.
has burnt to the ground and they have not had an opportunity to rebuild yet. So there is a strain on that food bank in Apsley.
Good.
We'll be doing one in Bridgenorth, one in Lakefield, one in Havelock, one in Buckhorn, and some of the proceeds from it will be going to all of the food banks throughout Peterborough County. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
That is great, Dave. Thank you for that update. And let me know about your food drives. I'll be there with you again as I'm able, and we'll make that a success. I guess the one thing coming to my mind right now is the long weekend coming up. And I think reality is reality. And I mean, I know we have all kinds of rules, don't do this and don't do that for all the right reasons, but I think you know, and I think we all know, the roads are going to be jammed, the cottages are going to be full, the boats are going to be on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hope we don't pay the price for it.
Jay, I've had so many people who've reached out to me and they've said they want to be able to go play golf. They want to go get on their boat. They want to do these things. We have rights. Absolutely, we have rights.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have responsibilities with all of these rights. There's a lot of things that I can do. There's a lot of things that I want to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what I should do. And at the end of the day, if we want to get out of COVID, we need to follow that advice. Wash your hands. It's simple. Wear your mask. Stay more than 6 feet away from other people. The virus moves with people. It doesn't walk, it doesn't run, it can't fly, and it cannot swim. I'm asking anyone who's watching this right now from the GTA, I'm asking you to stay home. One weekend, that's all I'm asking. One more weekend, and you can enjoy your cottage in the Kawarthas all summer long. But stay home so that you don't have that opportunity to spread this disease more. Ontario is seeing a reduction in COVID-19 cases, but Peterborough County is not. We are back up over 100 active cases now. We have 18 people who have passed away as a result of COVID-19. 2 months ago, we had less than 10. We are seeing it more now in our area. And I'm asking everybody, stay home. Give us one more weekend. I know you want to enjoy the outside. I know you want to enjoy your cottage. I know you want to go for a boat ride and do all those things with your family members. Give us one more weekend so that we can have the entire summer.
Well said, and very good advice. Questions, comments to our MPP? Members of council, is your opportunity. Go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you. Thanks for such an informative bunch of information, Dave, and it's nice to see you. I agree completely with everything you said, especially the stay home this weekend, and I really hope that happens. Two concerns that I have are the talk about possibly opening the Canada-US border. And I've seen snippets of information about that. And I just wondered if you had anything you could add to that. And my other concern is enforcement of large gatherings, just in case you had more information.
So the Canada-US border is a federal jurisdiction. It's not a provincial. Mm-hmm. We are on record. Premier Ford has written 5 letters now to Prime Minister Trudeau. Our Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, has written to the federal government. Our Solicitor General has written to the federal government. We have been very clear over since Christmas. We need to close the borders. We cannot have more variants of concern brought in. When you look at the virus right now, the virus has been mutating and it's named after the areas that it mutates in. There is not an Ontario variant, but there is a UK variant. There is an Indian variant. There is a Brazilian variant. There is a South African variant. There's a California variant. And right now, the UK variant is most prevalent. More than 70% of the cases in Ontario are the UK variant. They had to come in across our borders. The federal government has to recognize that in order to keep these variants of concern out of Ontario, out of Canada, they have to shut the border down. They have to do what is necessary to keep the people of this province and this country safe. Has nothing to do with racism, as some of the members of the federal government are trying to accuse us of. The fact of the matter is, the virus travels with people. It does not walk, swim, fly, or boat. It travels with people. There are far too many exceptions to allow people in. What we're seeing right now is people will fly to Buffalo, New York, or Niagara Falls, New York, get a taxi and drive across the border because they have no restrictions that way. That's a loophole. Enforcement, the enforcement is done by the OPP in Peterborough County or the city police. And I do not have the ability to give them any direction on it. That would be political interference. But I do appreciate the approach that Chief Gilbert has taken in Peterborough. They wait until the event is over, till there's an opportunity for there to be physical altercations, and then they are laying the charges. I think it's a responsible way of doing it.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Dave. Carl, go ahead. You're muted, Carl.
Thank you, Dave, for the update. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for your leadership to get us through this crazy times for such a long time. And hopefully this is it. I just wondered if the stunt driver legislation that you're pushing through, might it include tall ATVs on the back roads? Since the change of legislation, some of these back roads, it's the Wild West. It's just a noise and just constant evenings and days during the week. There's going to be some serious accidents. I understand you can't even buy an ATV in Ontario now. The promise of delivery is a year plus. So there's a lot of people purchasing them, and they'll be coming to our area. And any chance that the ATVs are part of that legislation?
It's not part of this legislation. What we're focusing primarily in this legislation is very high speeds, traveling more than 100 kilometers an hour. Most of the ATVs don't go at that type of a speed. We also have a portion of the bill that is with respect to e-bikes. With respect to ATV travel and some of the challenges that some of the rural townships are having, this would be one where please reach out to my office directly on it. Give me the feedback on what you're seeing, what you're hearing, because those are things that we can make some adjustments to. It's finding that appropriate balance. We recognize that not all of the trail system is connected properly, and to facilitate that the tourism aspect of it, we did open it up and allow for municipalities to give access on some of the roads. Some of the provincial roads we have given some access to as well. I think this is one of those cases, though, where we'll be making adjustments to it for a couple of years until we find exactly what's going to work best in each of the different areas. I'll use Haliburton as a great example. They've seen a great deal of success with it. I don't know whether it's just the ATV users themselves in that area are more respectful than in some of the other areas. But it's going to be an ongoing iterative process until we get it right all across Ontario.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And Dave, I will take your advice on the stunt driving when I get my little Morris Minor out of the garage for the summer. I will take that advice and try not to.
Well, Jay, you would have to be able to go above 60 kilometers an hour in order to within 60 kilometers an hour.
Oh, I see how it works. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. Very informative. We really appreciate any time you come and have a chat with us and bring us up to date. You're always more than welcome. And you live in the township. I mean, what can you say? A question that's come to me a few times, and I think you basically just answered it anyway when you said, the virus doesn't fly, it doesn't swim, it doesn't boat, stuff like that. But I've had people come to me and say, we don't want people from the greater Toronto area or, the high risk areas, the real high volume areas, stuff like that. But what if I own a cottage in my own area? Like some people have one 30 miles from their home. What's the scoop on that? I mean, we're not coming from outside, but again, like you said, it travels with people.
If you go to your cottage, and I'll say this for anybody, if you go to your cottage and you're not entertaining, you're not socializing with others, then it's not a risk. If you're going to your cottage and you stop at the gas station and you go to the grocery store and you have a few friends over, that's where there's risk. So traveling to your cottage in most cases, now I'll talk in slightly general terms. If you go up to your cottage to check on the plumbing, if you go up to the cottage and you're there for less than 24 hours, you didn't go into any of the local stores, you didn't get gas from any place other than the city that you live in, and then you go back home, there's no issue. If you go up to your cottage and you stay there for 2 weeks before you interact with anyone else, and then you go out, it's as if you are part of that community. So I would extend that to people who are in the community itself. I do recognize that there are people who have family cottages that are just down the road from them. That's probably not a big risk, as long as you're not gathering with the rest of your family there. The idea of the stay-at-home order is limit the travel as much as possible and stay with your immediate family members. Don't mix with other brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. In that case, it's probably not a big challenge because it's in the same community, it's the same people, as long as you don't interact with a whole bunch of people.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, and that's precisely the question I asked Dr. Salvatierra, and very confusing answers on that. Didn't have a lot of common sense, but thank you for that common sense answer. Last comment from Heather, and then we are going to move on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you for being here today, Dave. It's great to see you. My question is somewhat COVID related, more so on land and housing prices. And it seems that so many people are vacating city areas for much more beautiful rural settings, such as Douro-Dummer Township. I know in the past you have had some of our residents, and I'm sure other constituents within your riding, you have supported them with respect to severance. We're, from a planning perspective, we're encroaching on, maxing out our available land or easy to sever available land. I'm just wondering if you are anticipating any changes with respect to legislation that can impact our planning in a positive way or negative, hopefully positive, and maybe speak to some of the successes that you've had with our residents.
It's an interesting challenge that we face. When you're a smaller rural area that is very close to a larger urban area, you end up with some spillover. And I can't talk about housing prices without talking about the city of Peterborough itself. I don't want to be too critical of the city of Peterborough. However, I'm going to be very critical of the city of Peterborough. I have been advocating for my entire 3 years as the MPP that the city has to expand its borders, that it must add more residential development land. It must add more employment land. The city is growing. When you look at the places to grow legislation, the allocation of population is significantly more in the city of Peterborough than it is anywhere else. When you don't have inventory in the city for people to buy houses, it spills into the neighboring townships. Douro-Dummer will be affected by it. The price of housing in Douro-Dummer will go up because people who want to live in this area who can't find something in the city will move out to Douro-Dummer. They'll move to Selwyn. They'll move to Tawnaby South Monaghan and to Cavan. That is the reality. We have a fantastic community here. I've referred to it as God's country a number of times in the legislature. It truly is. We are blessed with wooded areas, we're blessed with Canadian Shield, and we're blessed with sandy beaches. We've got everything that Ontario has to offer in this area, and you are only 15 or 20 minutes away from an urban center of Peterborough. The city itself has to address this. They do not have developable land. And in their, I'm going to be very critical on this one, in their infinite wisdom, and this is as sarcastic as I can be, they've decided that they're going to investigate removing residential land and turning it into industrial employment lands to attract jobs. If you don't have enough housing and you reduce the number of development lots, you drive the price of housing up. In 3 years, they've gone from an average of $325,000 for the average home to well over $650,000. And that spills into the rest of Peterborough County. All property will go up. It's great if you're selling. It is horrible if you're a first-time home buyer. They're pricing people out of homes because of their short-sightedness. The city of Peterborough has to, I cannot say it enough, they absolutely must explore expanding the borders of the city, because if they do not, they will not have employment land and they will not have residential land, and everyone else in Peterborough County will pay the price for it. It's very short-sighted on their part. I can't believe they're actually entertaining the idea of removing housing stock to put industrial land in, simply because they're not willing to negotiate fairly or intelligently with any of the communities outside of the city. It's ridiculous. I can't say that enough. It is ridiculous. It's short-sighted. If they want to talk about affordable housing, you start with affordable land. You start with inventory. And when your average home price is $650,000, someone has to pay for it. And if you're renting, you have to pay the landlord's mortgage. The landlord is not going to be renting at lower than what their costs are. There was a time where you could buy 100 acres just outside of the city for about $1 million. And you could buy a single acre in the city for $1 million. Can you build more on 100 acres than you can on one? And if anyone comes up and says, no, you can't, I'm sorry, you're looking at the wrong thing. In order for us to do this right, we have to get the city of Peterborough to expand their borders. And that will relieve the pressure on all of the townships around.
Okay, Dave, I wish you would learn to say exactly how you feel. Good. Okay, the clock is ticking. I think we better move along. And Dave, I thank you very, very much. Did any members of staff have any questions you'd like to ask Dave? I should have asked you before that. No, he's certainly gone on a good time. Good for you, Dave. We're going to wrap things up, and I would like a motion, please, to receive that delegation. And I hope you'll come back real soon. This is what we need more of, an opportunity to talk to our MPP. Moved by Councillor Watt and seconded by Councillor Moher. All in favor? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. Dave, thank you very much. Keep up the good work. We're all behind you, and we'll get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to our final delegation, and this is Chris Kowalik. Chris, certainly no stranger to Douro-Dummer or Peterborough County, and I'm sure you've waited quite a while here to get on, but isn't it nice to be in the atmosphere of Douro-Dummer, though? That's why you're smiling. I understand that.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is the Community Safety Plan update. So, Chris, I'm going to let you go ahead, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I'm going to share my screen to go through my presentation. I believe you have copies of it. But I did add one slide that was missing. I'm hoping that folks can see that. Can you see my presentation?
Yep, we're good to go.
Right. So I added a slide. I also added a little logo in the corner there after I saw our MPP's initial welcome.
Attaboy.
I'm, pro Canada. I know I love Ontario.
And I see a Montreal Canadian logo in the bottom right-hand corner.
I
It's
added
a little
that little
payback.
bit while I saw how he introduced his delegation.
Good.
The purpose of my delegation today is to give some background information on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I will be coming to council next month as well with an interim plan for your consideration. I will note before I go too far, I was at North Kawartha Council earlier today, and one of the councillors at the end of the meeting mentioned the exact same thing that Councillor Moher mentioned about ATVs and the injuries that they're encountering in their municipality, and was relating it to this plan. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that while I remembered. Normally I remember those things a half hour after I'm done. I'm going to just as an overview, it was at the end of 2018 and the very beginning of 2019 that the province made amendments to the Police Services Act to require every municipality in Ontario to adopt a community safety and well-being plan. The deadline for completing those plans is July 1st of this year. We're not going to meet that deadline, and I'll have more to say about that later on in my presentation. Two of the key components for developing these plans are to create a highly representative advisory committee. I'm very pleased that your CAO, Alana, is on that advisory committee, and that we undertake broad community consultation to support the plan to get community feedback. I pulled out of the provincial guidelines this quote that summarizes what community safety and well-being plan is about. And it's about taking an integrated approach to service delivery by working across a wide range of sectors, agencies, organizations, including but not limited to local government, police services, health, mental health, education, social services, and community and custodial services for children and youth, to proactively develop and implement evidence-based strategies and programs to address local priorities related to crime and complex social issues. The province is looking for us to build our plan around these 4 levels of intervention shown in this circle graph. On the social development side, these are the systemic difficult problems and social issues like homelessness, like mental health issues and poverty, and working across organizations and collaborating to try to address those differently. On the prevention side, these are to proactively address strategies known about identified risks in communities. Risk interventions, these are things that respond to situations of acute elevated risk that haven't reached a crisis, but a good example of a measure that fits into this area would be the situation tables that we have. We have one around homelessness, so that when someone is in a crisis and poverty and homelessness are not their only challenges, often there are other family or other social challenges that it takes an entire team across different sectors to address the issues that avoid that person falling into further distress. And then there's certainly the emergency response level of police, ambulance, and fire. But in that area as well, it's also included things like when children's aid societies remove children from homes, that's an emergency response. And at a different level, it also looks at things like an emergency response, say in the education system, when a child or student is expelled from school and is removed for whatever type of behavior. So this plan is we do have one of the school boards so far on board with the plan. So looking at how we could cross collaborate to work with the education system as well. these community safety and well-being plans must include local priority risk factors that have been identified based on community consultation and multiple sources of data. So we'll be looking for all township representatives and Alana to be bringing feedback from your staff and your council as to the issues that Douro-Dummer wants to bring to the table that are important to your municipality. There will certainly be an urban-rural mix of risk factors and priorities, but we'll be looking for the input from those township representatives, certainly to bring the rural factors to the forefront so that they are reflected in the plan. The plan must have evidence-based programs and strategies to address those risk factors and certainly measurable outcomes with associated performance measures. I've added a couple of slides here. I'm not going to go through all of these on some of the high-level priorities that other municipalities have included in their community safety and well-being plans. So you can see, like in Halton, one that's relatively specific, reducing hospital readmissions for individuals with mental health issues. That would be a specific thing that could be measured quite readily, whereas somewhere in Niagara region, talking about generally addictions and substance misuse or affordable housing, mental health, and so on, they have a variety of actions couched underneath of those priority areas that their advisory committee and their councils have adopted. I can see us having similar ones. Certainly those are what's coming through quite readily right now, because we did have our first advisory committee meeting on Monday, and members are providing feedback to me to include into an interim plan. So just some more, and you can see Prince Edward County has included, and theirs are quite specific as well and have a very strong rural focus, around emergency response times to be quicker and safer, and how they can work locally to improve those. And then certainly a couple here about seniors and elder abuse and the fraud area, and helping with mobility as well. So I just share those, in that we'll be looking at other community well-being, community safety and well-being plans, but the priorities that we develop will be certainly focused on our priorities locally. It was in City Council's last meeting in December of last year, and this is, I'm just moving towards some the current situation that we're in. We had the budget to hire a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer for 2 years. And they're developed 2 city-county plans, one being a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, and the other to work on this community safety and well-being plan. That person is Reem Ali. She was hired, that name may be familiar. She worked for the New Canadian Center for a number of years and is interim executive director of the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. She'll be starting in July and assisting with this. We had hoped that the recruitment would take place sooner. And with that, you have me speaking in front of you instead of her. So working on that, and I'll be working on it moving forward with her assistance as well. Our goal at this point in time, given the July 1st deadline, and that July 1st deadline was an extension on a January 1st deadline, we are working to develop an interim report that I'll be bringing to you next month. As I mentioned, this presentation is to give you more of the background information so that you don't have similar questions at that meeting. Many of you may have been involved or have contributed to the community well-being plan that was worked on. That started in 2017, and it was received by City Council in 2019 with no real firm actions associated with it, because this community safety and well-being plan was looming in the background as well. So we've decided, the advisory committee on Friday decided to use that well-being plan and the information that they gleaned from the consultation process and the research that they had done. And we'll be doing the same with other plans. like the 10-year housing and homeless plan, like the drug strategy, like the OPP and the city police strategic plans. We want to align with those plans, but we've honed in on the community well-being plan and the 7 priority areas that are listed in this slide to build our starting priorities. So Alana actually just submitted those to me 10 minutes before your council meeting started. So I'm very grateful to receive those, and we'll be wrapping those up and compiling those and including them in the interim report. That interim report will be quite high level, and it's meant to be a document that we submit to the province to show that we are working towards a plan, with the expectation that we will submit a completed plan for January 1st, 2022. It's important to note that the CIO of Asphodel Norwood, Candace White, pulled these representative groups together back in February of last year, pre-pandemic. Hard to remember those times. To start working and see about how the city and the county and the townships could potentially work together. And it was agreed at that meeting that we would do a combined plan, have a single advisory committee, do combined consultation work to develop a city, county, townships community safety and well-being plan. And after that meeting, there was work that had started. I had the beginnings of an RFP to hire a consultant to do some of the background research and look at the consultation work. I was building it on a sample I had got from Windsor, Essex, because they had done a similar approach. But the pandemic hit, and work on this plan ground to a halt. People were redeployed, including myself. Municipalities were looking at business continuity and how they could continue operating in pandemic situations. And it wasn't until earlier this year that we really started revisiting the work on this plan. And even now, the challenge is certainly for those in the healthcare sector to represent on the advisory committee is a challenge. As an example, Peterborough Public Health is on the advisory committee, and normally when I recruited them on, they would have said they would have had 4 or 5 people contributing to this, but they just can't do it. So we do have one representative, and he'll do his best to represent public health and bring their expertise to the table. But as you can imagine, they're pretty tapped out right now. I included this slide. I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's more for your information, because that diversity, equity, inclusion officer will be working on a DEI plan. This is some of the kind of municipal implications and focus that they'll be looking at. I'm happy to answer any questions about this, but wanted to share that with you, but focus on the community safety and well-being aspect. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, Chris, and thank you for all the work you do. You're very thorough on these things. You always have been, and we thank you for that. Questions on this presentation? We will open the floor. Go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Chris, for your presentation, and thanks for the leadership that you demonstrate on this project. I'm glad to see the EMS reps are on the committee, because I believe the EMS have received funding from the province for reducing the readmittance to hospitals of patients, and I think that it might have been Renfrew County that they may be patterning it on. So I'm glad there's representation there to move forward with that, because I think that's a good way to keep people out of hospital. And the second point I want to make is I noticed you've got all the townships and the OPP and various agencies, but no reference to First Nations. The Ontario Provincial Police, it would appear that we're moving towards one police service board for the county. All seven townships, excluding Cavan Monaghan, and the First Nations. And there looks like they're coming on board as well. I wonder if that should be a consideration at some point. Maybe not now, but at some point.
Through you, Mayor Jones. On the first point, I'll certainly rely on Chief Mello to give his feedback and priorities. So I'm sure he'll have numerous ones. And one thing is we have to be clear about is we're going to be putting priorities in here that as a group can move forward. Like all these agencies have so many priorities that they're working on. It's going to be a challenge to hone in on a select few that agencies like, CMHA, the Peterborough Health Team, Peterborough Youth Services, EMS can collaborate on to actually move the needle on and make progress on. So I'll add that, but certainly I'm glad Chief Mello has joined the advisory committee. First Nations have the option of participating in development of a community safety and wellbeing plan. It's not required as it is for municipalities. I have reached out to both First Nations and have not received an answer one way or the other, whether they are going to be involved. We will consult with them. We do have, all I can say, the No-Go Friendship Center. I can never pronounce the full name. They are representing on the advisory committee and will contribute based on off-reserve Native residents.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Seeing no hands. Chris, thank you very much again for a thorough report. Staff, do you have any questions of Chris at all? Give you the opportunity as well. Okay, can I have a motion, please, to receive Chris and that detailed report? Councillor Watson will make the motion. Councillor Landsman will be the seconder. All in favor? That motion is approved. Chris, thank you very much, and you're always welcome at Douro-Dummer. Thank you.
I will see you in a month.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good meeting.
Okay, we do want to move right ahead now. We're a little behind schedule, perhaps, as our anticipated timing, but we will be as efficient as we can. We'll move to other business and staff reports. And our first item, we're going to turn to Martina, and this is about the Chuck Wagon Barbecue and their annual lease. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you've stated, this is a report about the Chuck Wagon Barbecue. They run a mobile canteen at the Douro Rec Center every year. They have a lease agreement with the township that runs from 2019 to 2022. As part of that lease agreement, council is to pass a resolution each year regarding the monthly lease fee. In 2019, the fee was $250 a month plus any amount of hydro above $75 at the recreation center. In 2020, because of COVID, the EOC chose to leave the lease fee the exact same as council wasn't meeting at the time when the application came forward. And so now in 2021, I've now received their application. I have issued their license for the season, but we do need to settle the amount of the monthly fee. And so I'm here to ask council what you would like staff to do on this. So I'm just looking for direction.
Thank you, Martina. Do you have a recommendation based on your research or comparative analysis?
Yeah, I would like to leave it at $250 again this year. We are still under COVID protocols and we are not sure exactly when those will be lifting. So the owners of Chuck Wagon Barbecue have implemented various safety plans to comply with the legislation, and that is costing them additional funds. So with the set fee at $250 a month plus the hydro, we will gain $1,500 in rental fees. Plus we'll have additional traffic and visitors to our community if we're allowed to lift the stay-at-home order.
Yeah, we need to be giving somebody a break here for sure. Questions, comments on this recommendation from Martina? Go ahead, Tom.
No, I totally agree. We want to keep this business here. It's a very, very good one. It's, and we're not trying to break the bank on anybody. With the protocols in place, I believe that I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation to keep it the same.
Okay, the motion's on the floor. A seconder from Sheila. Is there any other comment on the motion, please? Call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is approved. Thank you very much. Committee appointments. And Martina, again, I think it's a very simple recommendation. I think with COVID, it makes all the sense in the world. Go ahead, Martina.
So in January of 2021, I had brought a report to council asking us to extend committee appointments for 6 months due to COVID. And council did approve that 6-month extension. During that time, we have solicited new members from our existing membership and from the general public for the committees listed in the report, which is the Committee of Adjustment, Planning Committee, Donwood Parks Committee, Historical Committee, Parks and Recreation Master Plan Committee, and the Santa Claus Parade Committee. The Canada Day Parade Committee was also looking for citizen appointees, but at the time of writing the report, I hadn't received any citizens to sit on that committee. I have received one now, and I'm hoping to receive another one shortly. So you'll get another report on that committee separately. So we have received enough members to sit on all of the committees, and I have prepared bylaws to appoint those members to the committees that are in the bylaw section. And we've also needed to appoint council members to those committees as well. In the past, we have rotated council members through each committee, but due to COVID and limited access to our committee members and training materials, I'm recommending that the council appointments to the committees remain the same unless a councillor has an objection to the committee they're sitting upon.
Okay, thank you, Martina. We've pretty well been on the pause button for the last more than a year, so we've kind of lost a year in that type of planning. So that is the report. That is the recommendation. What are your comments? Sheila, go ahead.
Yes, I'd make a motion to follow the recommendation that was provided.
Good, thank you. And a seconder? A seconder, please, to that motion. Go ahead, Tom. And we'll call for the vote. Anybody wanted to speak to the motion? All in favor? That motion is approved. Good, we're moving right along. The next item, 9.3, is a pre-development agreement with the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre and the Young family. Martina, I'll turn it to you again. You are the lucky one with detail tonight, aren't you? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report that's before you is regarding a pre-development agreement for the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, which is hoping to build a new location on the Young property, which is located on Television Road. As part of the process, the OTCC is working through a zoning bylaw amendment and a site plan. As part of that, we typically request that applicants sign a pre-development agreement. This solidifies the relationship between the applicant and the township and ensures that they pay deposits so that all of the costs associated with these applications are borne by the applicant and not the township. There's multiple studies that have been submitted, a traffic study, an environmental impact study, archaeological study, stormwater management report, a hydrological assessment, and a planning justification report. All of these need to be reviewed by subject matter experts. And by signing this pre-development agreement, it ensures that not only those reviews take place, but the cost of those reviews is borne by the applicant and not the township. And it allows us to continue moving forward with processing these applications. So this pre-development agreement does not provide any type of approval for the projects. It just allows us to continue processing them and protect the township from incurring additional fees.
Okay, that was my question, just to be sure. This wasn't any kind of an approval situation. It was making sure that the I's get dotted and the T's get crossed and all the appropriate steps are taken. Okay, that is the report. Who would like to comment? Carl, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment. I have a resolution when you're ready to accept it.
Are there any other comments on that report before I ask Carl for his resolution? Okay, go ahead then, Carl.
Okay, I'll read it out. It's fairly detailed here. Whereas our Douro-Dummer community wish to do everything possible to protect the health of turtles and all life in our natural environment, and further that our community looks forward to the future Ontario turtle conservation being located in Douro-Dummer, and further that our residents expect that the protection of the natural environment be managed in a balanced approach without causing undue hardship to current residents, and further that the applicants will surely wish to demonstrate their respect and responsibility for the needs of their neighboring community residents. Therefore, it be resolved that the current recommendation in front of us tonight be deferred until such time as the beaver dam on the applicant's property be managed in such a fashion to eliminate the substantial damage and risk that the dammed backup water is causing to neighboring property owners along Television Road. If somebody passes this, I'll add more information. Or somebody seconds the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder to the motion that Carl has put on the floor? Do we have a seconder? Tom, go ahead. Is the seconder? Go ahead, Carl, continue.
Yeah, there's a couple neighbors that are on that back onto the applicant's property that are just desperate. Their septic tanks are at risk of losing them. They have lost a number of trees because of a beaver dam that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And repeated response to the applicants to do something about it have not been responded to. And I feel that even though we support the project here we've got in front of us, we've got to be responsible stewards of the land, that everyone has a right to protect their property and to move forward with the enjoyment of that property. So I feel we got to defer this until such time there is some action on that beaver dam that's causing tremendous damage to neighboring properties.
Thank you, Carl. You're very clear. Is there any comments on the motion that is on the floor and is duly seconded? Any comments about the motion? Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I agree that the prospect of having the Turtle Trauma Center in our community is exciting. Further demonstrating that our community, our habitat where the people live and the animals live, continue to support the environment and the work of the Turtle Trauma Center. I also agree with Deputy Mayor Moher that there have been some concerns about just general flooding in the neighborhood among many of the properties, and several residents were impacted negatively during the floods in 2002 and 2004, respectively. I also agree that the beaver dam specifically ought to be dealt with in some fashion. I'm concerned, however, that a one and done might not help from a long-term perspective. Deferring this particular agreement might be helpful to get that done, but I'm not terribly sure if it's going to help us long-term, because we know that beavers tend to come back and will reestablish their habitats when they've been removed. So at this point, I can't say that I support the motion, although I support the principle. I'd just be curious to hear from other members of council and staff as well with respect to how this fits, how this proposed motion, or rather motion, fits with the planning process and the Planning Act.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. Just in reading the recommendation, I understand exactly what is being proposed, and I completely agree with it, as Councillor Watson said. I just am not sure that they should be in the same motion. But I agree with it. I agree with the thought.
Okay. No, thank you, Sheila. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, just one further point. I'll just remind council members that we put conditions on planning reports for severance of lots, also committee of adjustment. There's always conditions, and I feel this is a condition that should be met, hopefully in the short term, so this project can advance expediently. And I would ask for a recorded vote as well, Mr. Chair.
So the motion basically is to defer a decision until this situation of the beaver dam is resolved. Basically, is that it in a nutshell?
That's correct.
Martina and or Alana, I think it would be instructive to have staff comments on the motion, please. Go ahead, Martina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just speak to the planning aspects, and then perhaps Elena would like to speak to the beavers or the wider community aspect. But for the Planning Act question that I believe maybe Councillor Watson had asked about the impact of this motion on the process. So Deputy Mayor Moher is correct. We have placed conditions on applications in the past, but that's done at the decision stage, not at this earlier stage. So at the moment, all that this bylaw is doing is solidifying the relationship so that we can continue to review these reports. If we are not able to review these reports, we are not able to bring to follow through on the steps that are laid out in the Planning Act. And if we were not able to complete our reviews and the steps that the township is required to take under the Planning Act, we could be taken to LPAT because we have not made a decision within the required timeline. So that's the planning side of things. As well, when we review these reports, it is a two-way dialogue. We are not just reviewing them and accepting them as is. We can then take those reviews by our subject matter experts, present them back to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, and ask them to make revisions or changes based on the needs and the needs of our community, and also the best science available to us. So
Martina, are you saying then, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, there would be a better and more appropriate time to put this concern forward?
I think, through you, Mr. Mayor, that tying the beavers to the review of these studies would not be ideal because it stops the process from moving forward on the planning side of things, and potentially puts us at a liability if this was to be taken to LPAT because of a motion of non-decision.
Okay, thank you. Alana, was there anything you wanted to add to that? I know Martina has taken this project under her wing.
For you, Mr. Mayor, there definitely has been quite a bit of conversation about this particular item through the assistance of Martina as well as Jake from our Public Works Department. I've tried to bring myself up to speed with what seems to be an ongoing issue. I understand the Deputy Mayor's thought process in going forward with this, and to hold that that motion to a more appropriate time could, continue to create damage if it is the beaver dam. But I don't know for sure that we can say that it is essentially just the beaver dam that's causing those drainage issues. We have scheduled a meeting with representation from Orca as well as the county to take a look at the drainage to determine whether or not there is something that can be done to mitigate some of the issues that are occurring there on the properties. We may come back and find that it's primarily the beaver dams, but if there's something else that can be done, we will look to move forward to try to mitigate those challenges.
I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here. Would it be better perhaps to wait for this meeting to take place that Alana has mentioned, that is focusing on the beaver dam, before we take this measure? Alana?
Sorry, I can just add, we have scheduled that meeting, so I don't have the date right in front of me, but it's definitely not in the too distant future. Within the next 2 weeks,
soon.
I believe we are
Yeah.
meeting, yes.
Yeah.
So I
Would
may be
that
able
be
to
a-
bring an update.
Would that be instructive? Would that give us a little more information before proceeding down Carl's alley? Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, question to staff, just kind of as a follow-up after hearing from our Deputy Clerk and CAO. I appreciate again what Deputy Mayor is trying to do. It feels a little hostile of an approach to effectively halt the process on this one particular contingent item. Is there, has there been any dialogue, maybe to Alana, with the landowners that you mentioned that you've been actively on the file? Has this concern been brought forward to the landowners or to the Turtle Trauma Center prior to this moment in time? Or, you know, at the very least, we know that they're going to be hearing it loud and clear through the minutes and through this meeting. But has there been any dialogue recently about this concern?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not personally had any dialogue with the landowner. Prior to my arrival, Martina may have spoke with her, so I will let her add whatever she might have.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not spoken directly to Mrs. Young about her beavers. I have mentioned to her that there are drainage concerns from her neighbors and that she should work to address those as soon as possible. I've also alerted the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre that while they're doing their public consultation pieces, I'm sure they will hear from neighbors regarding drainage issues, and they did take that under advisement. And I let them know that we would be having a meeting with agencies, but I didn't have any other feedback to provide to them at the time.
Good. Thank you, Martina. Heather, you're finished?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. You both answered my questions. At this point, I don't believe I can support the motion, although I know that there's an issue. I think that this isn't the time and the place for that. And as we can continue that two-way dialogue with all of the parties involved while advancing the planning process is probably in the best interest short-term and long-term for the residents and the neighbors.
I certainly understand the impact of Carl's resolution, and absolutely, this is something that has been a thorn in the side of neighbors for many, many years. We've heard about this for ages, and maybe now is the time to get it cleared up. Carl, go ahead.
I need to get permission to speak for a third time. Our procedural bylaw, I think, says 2 times.
Well, aren't we being picky? We'll give you special permission, Carl. Go ahead.
Okay. Based on the information presented by staff and other members, I would, if the seconder would agree with it, I would agree to deferring it to our next council meeting, the first meeting in June.
Okay, is that fair with the seconder?
Yes, I would have no problem with that, as long as we do have that, you do have that meeting staff before next, I want to be sure that we're not going to fall into a different timeline here, that the meeting is going to happen before our next council meeting.
Alana?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our meeting is scheduled for June the 8th. So if we could have to the second meeting in June, we'll bring something together from the outcome of that meeting.
Sounds fair to me.
Okay, so the second meeting of June, Carl, you're good with
It'll
that?
be on the agenda, the second meeting in June, and we can proceed from there. Carl?
That would be okay, or a special meeting. I wouldn't be opposed to a special meeting if necessary.
Just for the record, you spoke 4 times now, Carl.
Okay.
Just so you knew. Well, that's always a possibility. I can call a special meeting if the facts and the information deem it a reasonable thing to do. I'll work with Alana and Martina, and if that's what we need to do, we'll do it. Okay. So are you withdrawing your motion right now, Carl?
No, I'm just revising it to defer to second meeting in June.
Okay. The whole issue.
Yes, the last paragraph there. Therefore, it be resolved
Okay.
the current recommendation in front of us tonight be deferred, a deferred decision until the second meeting in June.
And the seconder is okay with that motion? Okay. You asked for a recorded vote. Is that where you want it still?
Yes, please.
Martina, you have your hand in the air?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted a point of clarification so I can ensure that I capture this information correctly. The motion we are deferring is the motion specifically read out by Deputy Mayor Moher. Is that correct?
Yes. And the final paragraph changed to therefore it be resolved that the current recommendation in front of us tonight be deferred to the second meeting of June until such time, or pardon me, removing the reference to the, there's a couple other words should be removed as well there.
One more question, I'm sorry. Does that mean that you are also delaying the passing of the bylaw that was in the report? I just want to be quite.
Yes, I would say so.
That's part of the motion.
Okay.
Part of the motion.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, for the record, Carl has spoken 7 times, but who's counting? Okay, that motion is on the floor. A recorded vote has been called. Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I probably also need permission to speak one more time, but I'm speaking to the amended motion for what it's worth. I still can't wrap my head around even deferring it. I understand the gravity and the essence of trying to get this done quickly, but I don't even know anything about beaver mitigation. Kidding aside, like what if they are in some sort of mating season, breeding seasons, whatever that may be, and it actually can't be dealt with by the second meeting of June. So I feel a little awkward trying to impose those restrictions without knowing anything about beaver mitigation, much less making sure that we have the right professionals to be able to do that work, unless staff can clear up any of those questions. At this point, it's still not a motion that I can support as it's been amended.
But I think the motion basically is calling for more information to present itself, so we have more information. And that will be coming to us in the second meeting of June, and then we'll go from there. I don't think.
Oh, I apologize. I've misunderstood the motion, and I thought we were supposed to be trying to remove the beavers before we move forward with any of the planning process. That's how I heard it read the first time. Is where are we at with the amended motion?
The motion is Carl's motion that he read, and he has put a new extra on it that we will gather more information through the staff meeting with the players involved, and we will have a meeting, and the subject will come up either at the June meeting in June or a special meeting to put the facts on the table. And from there, I guess we go on to see what we do or don't do. So we're just gathering information.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification, Your Worship.
Carl, you're going to speak again.
I'm sorry I'm coming forward here, but like I guess it's fine to have more information, but I guess I need to have that beaver dam removed or managed in some fashion. And I'm willing to, the resolution will delay the whole process until the first meeting or second meeting of June in order to make these neighbors happy with their right to enjoy their land. Like, if that's the way that they're being treated by their applicants, what is this new project? What new subject is going to be risen that affects the neighbors at that location? There could be further issues come forward. I understand the conservation area. There would be turtles coming in here from all over Ontario that could be that have been injured by mostly traffic. They won't be running wild or anything out in the field. They'll all be inside. And it's a very noble project to have happen. We're very happy to have it here, but we've got to be responsible and respect the neighbors. We live in harmony in Douro-Dummer, and to allow these people to flood other people's property, something's got to be dealt with, and that's the purpose of the motion.
Okay, we are getting rather complicated. Well, there's a motion on the floor. I will ask Martina to articulate the motion so we're all extremely clear, and we'll vote on a recorded vote. So Martina and or Alana, let me hear your interpretation of the motion that will be on the record. Go ahead, Martina.
Whereas our Douro-Dummer community wishes to do everything possible to protect the health of turtles and all life in our natural environment. And further, that our community looks forward to the future Ontario turtle conservation being located in Douro-Dummer. And further, that our residents expect that the protection of the natural environment be managed in a balanced approach without causing undue hardship to current residents. And further, that the applicants will surely wish to demonstrate their respect and responsibility for the needs of their neighboring community residents. Therefore, be it resolved that the current recommendation in front of us tonight be deferred until such time that staff are able to meet with partner agencies and bring back additional information at a meeting late in June, whether that be the last meeting in June or a special meeting. And then this is where I get a little stuck. Would you like me, Deputy Mayor Mohart, to include the information that it be deferred until such time as the Beaver Dam be removed, or just that the information be brought back?
I guess, can I read, can I speak again, Mr. Chair?
How many times is that, Carl?
Oh, probably 9.
Go ahead.
It's the last paragraph I'm having difficulty with. Therefore, it be resolved that the current recommendation in front of us tonight be deferred to the second meeting in June,
Right.
or until such time as the Beaver Dam on the applicant's property be managed in such a fashion to eliminate the substantial damage and risk that the dam's back water is causing to neighboring properties along Television Road. If the dam is removed tomorrow, we can move forward.
Well, that's your motion, and that is duly seconded. I guess personally, I'm just somewhat worried about the procedure, and are those two subjects conflicting? And but we're deferring it. We're trying to gather more information. Alana is going to be having meetings, and I hope that this can come up with a common sense solution. But Carl's motion is his motion, and that's fine. So, Martina, anybody else want a question on the motion? So one of the most confusing ones I think we've had. It's all a shell game. Go ahead, Sheila.
I can't support the wording in the last paragraph. I could see if it was worded such that when more information was gleaned from Alana's meeting or something like that. Anyway,
that's where I'm coming from too, Sheila. Okay, we've all got our impression of what this motion is, and I think we're all trying to accomplish the same thing. There's no question about that. It's just how we go about it and how we deal with it. So, Martina, unless you want to speak for another half hour, go ahead and call for the vote, please.
Very good, Mr. Mayor. So, as per the request from Deputy Mayor Mohart, a recorded vote has been called. Dummer Ward Councillor, how do you vote?
No.
Douro Ward Councillor, how do you vote?
No.
Councillor at large, how do you vote?
No.
Deputy Mayor Mohart, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor, how do you vote?
No.
The motion is lost.
Okay, that motion is lost, but a reminder to everyone, once we gather more information and get the facts on the table, there will be plenty of opportunity to fine tune rules and regulations as we move forward on this. Go ahead,
order,
Tom.
Mr. Mayor.
Tom, and then Heather.
All right, I'd like to put forth another motion, if that's all right, just to defer our motion that was in the agenda tonight till a future meeting, whether it be the last one in July or a special one, and that staff be given time to work with the applicants and so on and so forth, and see if in that realm of talks that the Beaver Dam gets looked after.
Sheila, you'll second that?
I would second that, but I just would question the date that Councillor, what did you say, the end of July?
No, the second meeting in June or
a special meeting.
Special meeting.
Okay, I'm
before that
sorry.
is
I thought you
necessary.
said July, but yes, I would second that.
Alana, you're okay with that concept, and you know where you're going. Okay. Any other comment on that motion? We have a mover and a seconder. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is approved. Okay, thank you. As I said, we're all trying to get to the same end gate, and we will, no doubt about it. Okay, we're going to move ahead to committee minutes and other reports. The first is the Donwood Parks Committee minutes of the 14th of April. A motion, please, to receive and approve those minutes. Tom, seconder, Sheila. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion is approved. The HR Committee minutes of April 20th. Motion to receive and approve those minutes, please. Heather, seconder. Tom, all in favor? That motion is approved. Police Service Board minutes of the 28th of April. Tom, seconder. Sheila, all in favor? That motion is approved as well. And 10.4, a report and capital project status. Are we going to speak to that, Alana? Did you want Jake to jump in?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to speak to it quickly.
Okay.
I know we've chatted about this in the past, just trying to devise something so that council has a quick oversight as to what's coming forward. I had indicated we put this together following the passing of the budget so that we could also include all of our capital projects. So you can take a look and see what to expect in the next couple of months. We will add the motion that was just passed on the item on Television Road so that it will come back to that second meeting in June, if not sooner. So if council has any questions about that, we can answer questions specifically, but essentially this is just to give you a snapshot of where we're at, the report date or the estimated report dates, and as things happen with our capital projects, we will update them to let you know what the status is currently. Many of them right now are in the beginning stages, so we don't have a lot of information on those.
Yep. Excellent idea. I think we all need easy access to this type of thing. We're always getting asked, when's that road going to be done here?
Yep.
Is that going to be this year? All those things. Go ahead, Sheila.
Yes, I would make a motion to receive that report with many thanks. I think it's something that we'll all benefit from.
Yep, good. Well said. Okay, that motion, Heather is going to second it. All in favor? That motion is approved. We have 3 bylaws to deal with. Martina, give me a quick review of all 3 and we'll get one motion, please. 11.1 and 11.2, I guess, is what we're dealing with.
Very good. So bylaw 2021 33 is to appoint members to the various boards and committees and to amend the existing, the original appointment bylaws. And then the second bylaw, 2021 34, is specifically to appoint a member to the Committee of Adjustment and Planning Committee, which would be Rod Manley. He is the applicant who was chosen for that position.
Okay, that's good. So we'll send out a big welcome to Rod as the newest member of that committee. That'll be great. A motion, please, for the bylaws.
Sure.
Sheila, seconder. Carl? All in favor? That motion is approved. Action items, we do have a letter from Autonomy Conservation Authority, and that's about the maintenance of the road at the Warsaw Caves. And Jake, I hope you didn't doze off on us. I'm sure you're still there in the background somewhere. Maybe you could review that that report and give us an idea where we go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I don't have the letter in front of me. However, I do have a few comments regarding the letter. I don't want to come across as being uncooperative, but I do have a few comments and concerns. The Public Works Department is extremely busy. We have limited staff during our spring hours or springtime. We're struggling to get all the sweeping done through the township. It takes staff time to plan and schedule and complete this work that they're requesting. The site is a rural campground setting. The ability to maneuver large equipment like a grader and dump trucks throughout the narrow treed roads is challenging and quite cumbersome. Staff have commented on this multiple times as we've done this in the past, or there has been past work done there. There's also the concern with staff safety and public safety. The risk of damaging some of our equipment, the risk of damaging the property on site. potentially liability to the municipality, setting a precedent to future requests through council. Like I say, I don't want to come across as being uncooperative. However, we are on a tight schedule, and if we have a rainy summer or a wet summer, it can play havoc on our work schedule. When the sweeping operations are begin and the contractors confirmed for 2022, this information could be shared with Warsaw Caves personnel for them to coordinate in-house with that contractor. We can work with them, we can work, do what we can, but it does take time out of our schedule.
Can't say I don't agree with you. Jake, good thinking. Alana, maybe you could jump in on this and tell us how maybe we deal with Orca.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This had come about, and I understand that it's been done in the past, and there's never been any charge back to Orca. And like Jake said, we don't want to be difficult or not help Orca or the work that's being done at the Warsaw Caves, but it seems that this is one of those things that sort of has been done every year. There's never been a formal agreement in place. Like I said, there's never been any cost provided to the municipality for the time or any of the materials that are used. I can't really speak to the machinery, but Jake has done that. So I think it's up to council. We're happy to do it. We'll make it work if council wants us to accommodate Orca. But I do think that we need to look at something that's a little more formal, potentially with recouping the costs and having some kind of a formal agreement in place. I know Jake had just mentioned working with them for 2022 with the contractor. Again, we don't want to leave them short for 2021. So we'll take the direction of council and do as you wish. But it's something that I think if we're going to continue to do, we have to put something formal in place. I did speak with Dan from Orca, and he agreed, understanding that this has just been done for the past number of years. So I'm sure he will work with us to get something in place. But to protect the municipality, I think that's what we need to do.
Well said, both of you. So perhaps a potential motion could be to instruct staff to come up with a formal agreement with Orca to look after those tasks. That's really the bottom line. Heather?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would be willing to make that motion that staff work with Orca to come up with an amiable solution to meet their needs yet cover our costs. And if I could just speak to that for a moment, in looking at the letter, it appears that, and as Alana has said, that Orca is more than willing to reimburse for even past service. I certainly wouldn't encourage that we look at that, but I certainly think that staff can work with Orca to come up with a solution that makes sense.
Thank you, Heather. That motion is very clear. Carl, you'll second that? You're muted, Carl, for your first speaking appointment.
I just want to make sure that Jake and Alana talked to Dan about an easy solution for 2021, because it is mid-May right now, and trying to find alternatives might be difficult. But certainly having something formal in place for next year would be very, very important. So maybe we can help them find a contractor for this year, or try to do what we can, because I don't want our relationships to be severed, and it looks like you're already halfway there.
Yeah, I think staff are on that, and they're fully capable, I guess, of coming up with a good agreement. Tom?
Jake, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to you, Jake, because I didn't even know we did this. So the sweeping of the entrance, I mean, 10 chances to 1, the brush on the top, on the front of the tractor might suffice for this year. I really don't know exactly to what extent. Did we always grade like all through the whole camping area and right down to the water and everything, or did we just grade the road going in and into the parking lot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, the road way into the parking lot is surface treated, so it's that's why the need for sweeping.
Okay.
So the tractor, our tractor with the sweeper will suffice, although then there's the cleanup of all of the sand. So at this point, the contractor's already gone, and we don't have, that will have to do for this year, and the cave staff will have to clean it up. But yes, we have in the past went all the way through those roads and done what was requested.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to finish off, I can see where that could be very detrimental to some of our machinery. I mean, I've gone through there over the years with cars and trucks, stuff like that. There's some pretty tight spots in there and overhanging trees and that, and you could end up with more damage to equipment than what you'd get out of it, kind of like that. So it's just, yeah, it's one of those things that we've really got to be cautious about. Help out, but we've got to be cautious about for sure.
Okay, I think staff are on it. They'll meet with Orca and come up with an agreement that everyone is happy with, I'm sure. No motion's on the floor. All in favor? That motion is approved. Item 13.1, under info items, we have a renter's information kit that's in your package. Excellent, excellent idea. Who wants to speak to that? Alana or Martina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can speak to it briefly. That idea actually came originally from a resident, and we were able to take a look at some neighboring municipalities that had done something similar, not quite the same. We sought some feedback again from that resident and took a look at other information that we could provide and had one of our staff put that together. So
Good.
In the event that they lift the restrictions and we see more rentals, hopefully it'll be beneficial for those people coming into our community.
That's great. That's called working together. That's just a great idea. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think it is a fantastic idea, and certainly something that hopefully our landowners, homeowners who are renting out will appreciate. Just a question with respect to the formatting of the document. Have you looked at this through the lens of AODA and just branding? It seems to be, just based on my limited knowledge of AODA, it seems to be a little off. So I would just perhaps suggest that staff take a look at that before it is actually circulated for public use.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're happy to take a look. I did not look at it for AODA, so I will
Good.
double check and see what has been looked at and what hasn't, and we'll make sure it gets brought up to date.
Okay, good. Staff will review that. Go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you. Through you, I think it's a great thing to be putting out for people who rent, and I'm just not quite sure how people would get it. What really sort of struck me about it was the timing, because it's just been, I think was 10 days ago that Public Health put out their notice that you're not to rent your cottage, you're not to rent your place, and people should be able to prove that they have no place to live before you rent to them. So I just questioned the timing on it, but and I would support Heather with just taking a look and possibly tidying the form up.
Well, if that's the case, it should give us lots of time to work on it before renting is permitted. So that's good. Okay, staff, you're okay with that? And it's a great idea. So let's move ahead. Tom, last comment.
No, just a motion to receive it. Thank you to staff.
Yeah, it's well, I don't think we need a motion, but if there's one on the floor, I guess we'll have it. It's just an information item. Who wants to second it? Carl?
Sure.
All in favor? That motion is approved. Accounts to April 9th, 21 are in your package. A motion, please. Carl and Sheila. Go ahead, Carl.
Move to receive and pay.
And
Second.
Sheila will, okay. All in favor? Motion is approved. Any notice as a motion anyone has? Seeing no hands. Any community announcements anyone wishes to make? Seeing no hands. We have no closed session. A motion for the confirming bylaw.
Seem to have lost the mayor.
Oh, he must have got kicked out. Carl, you'll have to take over.
Confirming bylaw. Tom, Sheila, all in favor? And a motion to adjourn. Heather, seconded by Sheila, all in favor? Carried. We're adjourned. Have a
Good
good
night,
evening.
everyone.
Good night.
Have a good, safe